The Mekong River Delta is one of the most fertile deltas on Earth. However, it's also one of the 5 most vulnerable deltas to climate change in the world. Climate change may wreak havoc to the delta, which is home to 17 million residents and produces more than half of the rice output in Vietnam. Meanwhile, climate change and water source security are now urgent challenges in the Netherlands. A country lying below sea level with a centuries-old experience in water management, the Netherlands is now leading the world in climate change adaptation and is a strategic partner of Vietnam in this field. To learn more about how Vietnam is doing with climate change adaptation in the Mekong Delta and how the Netherlands is helping with this, we've invited to our studio today 2 distinguished guests. Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to Vietnam, Ms. Elsbeth Ackerman, and Mr. Nguyễn Hữu Thiện, an independent expert on the Mekong Delta ecosystem. Well, first of all, thank you so much to you both for joining our program today. Ambassador, I learned that you just paid a 3-day visit to the Mekong Delta from the 24th to the 26th of November. So can you tell me what impressed you the most during that trip?
I feel like a very happy and grateful person for being allowed to have a 3-day working visit. I was the host of the Mekong Delta Boys, of which Mr. Chen is one of them, and also a number of provincial representatives. And what they told me is that the Mekong Delta is actually a very rich area of Vietnam in terms of economic potential, in terms of social and cultural aspects. And this time I could really see that with my own eyes. Mm-hmm. What I also saw is that the Mekong Delta is faced with many challenges. Mm-hmm. On the one hand side, climate change, but on the other hand side, we also changed the way of nature by the way that we are undertaking agricultural practices. They can actually be turned for the better of the people and also for the livability and the economic sustainability of that area.
So from what you saw, what do you think are the biggest challenges related to climate change that the Mekong Delta is now facing?
The most well-known problem, of course, is the rising of the sea level. But what is actually a more prominent and more urgent problem is land subsidence. Mm. Actually, as a result of, amongst others, agriculture or construction works, the land is sinking. Right. So whereas we are talking about sea level rise, a number of centimeters in a number of decades, we are talking about a number of centimeters per year when we talk about the sinking and land subsidence of the land.
So, Mr. Thiện, Ambassador just mentioned and called you the Delta Boy. So, can you explain more about this nickname?
I was born in a village in a farming family and grew up with the land and the rivers of the Mekong Delta, knowing how to do everything in the village, from planting rice to fishing. And so I'm the witness of the rapid changes of the Delta. Mm-hmm. So they call me a Delta Boy. And actually, there are several Delta Boys. We meet informally and chat over the issues of the Mekong Delta over a cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm. So, in your opinions, what are the challenges that the Mekong Delta is facing right now as a witnesser of, the changes over the years?
Sea level rise, although it's a gradual process, a slow process of only about 3 millimeters a year, but accumulation over time is very significant. And upstream, in the context of climate change, whenever there is an extreme event like El Nino causing low rain, on top of that, we have a lot of hydropower reservoir upstream. In a drought year, for water to pass through one dam, it takes already 3 to 18, and for a cascade of dams, it takes months. But the main impact of the dams to the Mekong Delta is the deprivation of the sediment and the sand, causing rampant erosion of riverbanks and the coast in Vietnam.
Right.
And the last several decades, we have followed the policy to maximize rice production. We have created a lot of environmental problems.
As they wait for the flood season to come, many farmers in the province grow water lilies. Water lilies help local farmers earn additional income and improves their lives whether the flood water level is low or high.
500 mét vuông thì một năm mình thu hoạch chắc khoảng được là 30 triệu.
Những vùng đất cao thì sẽ chuyển dịch sang từ 3 vụ lúa sang hai vụ lúa và một vụ màu. Những cây được chọn như là cây bông súng hoặc là điên điển thì trồng trong cái mùa nước lên để mà phục vụ cái sinh kế cho người dân.
Nguyễn Chí Công has been breeding fish for nearly 2 months. He will wait another week until the flood water level is higher to release his fish into this 5-hectare rice field. In case the water level remains low, he has a backup plan.
Mỗi năm thì có nước lũ thì mình sản xuất theo cái cách tự nhiên là đê bao mình chỉ giăng lưới thôi. Năm nay không có lũ về trễ, con cá mình đã nó tới tuổi mà trưởng thành này mình thả ra thiên nhiên, mình phải bơm nước vô cho nó sản xuất theo ý muốn của mình.
Khuyến cáo người ta đào các cái ao hoặc là tận dụng những cái ao có sẵn để trữ nước. Với cái tỷ lệ diện tích ao là khoảng từ 10 đến 15%. Khi cá lúc còn nhỏ ta thả vào đó, khi lũ lên thì tùy theo cái mực nước lớn chúng ta sẽ thả cá lên đồng. Chúng tôi cũng phải lắp đặt các cái loại bơm để phòng ngừa các cái trường hợp mà lũ nó không về thì ít nhất là cũng phải nuôi từ cái con cá mà mình thả không tận dụng được mùa lũ thì cũng có thể chuyển sang nuôi thâm canh.
In recent years, local farmers in Đồng Tháp province have applied many effective farming models during the flood season, such as planting 2 rice crops and switch to aquaculture or vegetables in the remaining one, earning from $215 to $1,900 per hectare per year. These methods are easy to do and the costs are not too high, with low risk. Having flexible cultivation method has helped farmers in the watershed area of the Mekong Delta have stable income.
Mr. Thiện, talking from your own experience and observations, what do you think about the way farmers in the Mekong Delta is adapting to climate change?
People in the Delta, you can say that they understand the environment, they understand the land, the soil, and the water very well. Now we have bigger challenges, but thankfully our people are very creative and full of initiatives. You'll be surprised that they can do successful initiative like planting dragon fruit in the mangrove. They sell it for double the price because the quality is very good.
Talking from the experience of the Netherlands in terms of Delta management, maybe can you share with us, Ambassador, some of the experience of the Netherlands in management of Delta?
The Netherlands is for 1/3 actually under the level of the sea. So if we would not manage our water, on the one hand side by infrastructure, but also on the other hand side by nature-based solutions, only 2/3 of the country would remain. So in the past hundreds, maybe even 1,000 years, we really learned to live with water. We turned towards a different concept, and that is living with nature. Right. Instead of living off nature. We use smarter, more flexible dikes and dams. That at first was a closed system to prevent the land from flooding. But recently part of this construction was opened to allow for fish migration. And instead of building higher dikes in parts of the Netherlands, we now give the river room to overflow. So we managed our urban planning and we managed our environmental systems in such a way that rivers can now overflow. And another example, which is, for instance, very close to my home when I'm in the Netherlands, is a sand engine. It is a way of using the natural flow of the water in the sea, so the tides and the streams in the water, to have sand move towards the beaches so that part of the coastal erosion is in a natural way fought. We were very happy to host Prime Minister Phie for a working visit to the Netherlands to showcase to the Prime Minister how water management in the Netherlands works. So Prime Minister Phie took a helicopter flight and saw the different approaches we have to manage our water, also how water and agriculture coincide. And of course, we also informed the Prime Minister about the fact that water management in the Netherlands means long-term integrated planning, where a multi-stakeholder approach is used.
These satellite images show that many areas in the Mekong Delta are experiencing subsidence at a rate of about 1 to 3 centimeters per year. The over-extraction of groundwater creates pressure on the soil layers, thereby accelerating land subsidence. Besides, the tidal amplitude and salinity in the Mekong Delta have increased by 40% in the last 10 years due to the sediment starvation as the result of upstream dam building and sand mining. These are preliminary results of the Rise and Fall research project announced by Dutch researchers at a press conference on the 24th of October 2019 in Hanoi.
What we've learned is that the delta is increasingly changing in the past decades. And there is climate change on one hand that is causing the rise in sea level, but we see that man-made changes in the delta are increasingly happening as well. And the effect of these man-made changes are now larger than climate change. So what we see is that the delta is sinking at an increasing rate.
Both the Netherlands and Vietnam have low deltas, so the two countries launched the Rise and Fall research project in 2014 to enhance the capability of developing sustainable strategies to deal with land subsidence and saltwater intrusion in the Mekong Delta. After 5 years of research, these initial findings are reliable sources for Vietnam to have a better understanding of this situation, providing a scientific basis for policymakers to implement a new coordination mechanism.
When you're experiencing these issues with the rising sea levels and the sinking land in the delta, there's two ways. You can adapt to the changes. That means building dikes. That means accepting the changes that are going on. But you can also go to the root causes, and that is called mitigation. And in this case, the root causes that cause these changes are predominantly the mining of water and sand. And if you start reducing that, you can solve the underlying issue that causes the problems.
The project results as well as proposed solutions were handed over to the representatives of Vietnam Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment as the basis for strategies and policies for sustainable development of the Mekong Delta. The Netherlands Embassy also expressed its aspiration to support Vietnam in tackling problems through subsidized technical assistance, strategic advices and modalities.
We have been asked by the government of Vietnam to help reinforce the coordination in the Mekong Delta among different ministries, but also to set up a Delta Fund for the sustainable management of the Mekong Delta. And we have experience in the Netherlands that we can share. And we also want to embark on a program to transform the agriculture in the Mekong Delta to make it more in line with the water and climate change.
The project called Rise and Fall. Vietnam and the Netherlands started this project since 2014. So what were the key findings of this report, of this project?
I think one very important key finding is that it is very important that in Vietnam it becomes clear how much the sea will rise and how much the ground level, the land subsidence, will be. Combine these figures and then make a prognosis and a scenario about how the future will look. And on that basis come up with measures. For instance, that instead of triple crop rice, you might turn to fruits and vegetables. Mm-hmm. Or in areas where the water is salinated, that instead of rice you turn to agriculture. Another important finding of this rise and fall report is the salination of the rivers as a result of sand mining. If we continue to mine sand in the Mekong Delta, the level of the river will be lower, which means that from the sea it is easier to enter the land. I guess this is also a call to really think about how you deal with this beautiful Mekong River that brings so much life to the delta.
Do you want to add anything else to further comment on the finding of this report?
The research found that the Mekong Delta sank on the average 18 on a cumulative ranging from 9 to 59. So we are sinking faster 3-4 times, and at the hotspot 10 times faster than sea level rise.
Wow.
The main cause of the land subsidence is because of the excessive extraction of groundwater. Rice cropping have, together with the massive water regulation infrastructure systems, we have created the pollution problem so that we cannot use the rivers and canals anymore, and we rely too much on groundwater.
2016 witnessed the most serious drought and salinity levels ever in the Delta, when up to 160,000 hectares of paddy fields were damaged. During the dry seasons of 2020, the Mekong Delta also suffered saline intrusion at levels that would beat the 2016 record. However, farmers have changed their farming and production model to make profits from saline water. The price of rice is 5,000 Vietnamese dong or 22 US cents per kilogram. However, the price of shrimp grown in saline water can reach up to 150,000 Vietnamese dong or 6.5 US dollars per kilogram. When applying modern technology, shrimp farming productivity can even reach 5 to 6 tons per hectare.
Mình sang canh lúa tôm thì nếu miễn mà mình tính là mình bỏ sở phí đồ này kia, còn cũng là non trăm lãi trong năm.
Cái sản lượng thu hoạch thì tôi thu hoạch được 24 tấn trong vòng 3 tháng. Mình thấy nuôi tôm nó có hiệu quả, thì thu nhập nó cũng đỡ. Áp dụng cái công nghệ cao rồi cái khoa học kỹ thuật vào là mình thấy nó tốt hơn nhiều chứ. Lúc trước là mình phải đo nước, đo bằng tay. Bây giờ máy đưa xuống là mình biết được cái môi trường trong nước rồi.
To solve the problem of water pollution, scientists have researched and transferred the devices that apply 4.0 technology to farmers, such as water monitoring systems or automatic feeding machines.
Trong cái thức ăn á, cho tôm ăn nhiều quá nó ăn không hết á, thì nó làm dơ nước. Do đó mà thôi giờ mình phải làm những cái máy cho ăn ứng dụng trí tuệ nhân tạo để mình có thể cho ăn đúng, dựa trên những cái thiết bị cảm ứng thông minh tự động, cứ 15 phút lấy dữ liệu đưa lên máy một lần thì nó tổng hợp những cái dữ liệu đó và nó ra lệnh cho cái máy cho ăn lúc nào, số lượng bao nhiêu, nó tự động nó làm cái chuyện đó.
The Mekong Delta are facing severe natural disasters, erosions and saline intrusion. In Theo province alone, phenomena such as saline intrusion have affected agricultural production and caused loss of over 43 million US dollars per year. Facing this situation, farmers in the Mekong Delta are transforming to a nature-based agricultural production model that respects nature. The way farmers in Theo province are living with saline intrusion and considering it a new resource to earn income is an example of such transformation.
The report which was seen show how farmers in some Mekong Delta have managed to get better off from farming, as we just discussed. So despite drought and saline intrusion, what do you think about this story?
The story shows that the people of the Delta don't just sit there. They are full of initiatives for adaptation. What they're doing is quite in line with the spirit of the Resolution 120. And in the past, because driven by the rice first policy, we thought that saline water was an enemy to be fought. So now what the farmers there in Javin are doing is showing that we are moving toward a more adaptive direction in line with Resolution 120.
What has the Netherlands done to support Vietnam in dealing with saline intrusion, and what is happening in the Mekong Delta?
What has the Netherlands been doing in the Delta related to salination, but also to land subsidence? I would say on the first, in first instance, it was advising the government on water management based on our own experiences. But now we are involved in the agricultural transformation program. And on the one hand side, the program is aimed at making sure that farming and farmers have a future and a livelihood. But at the same time, it is making sure that agriculture contributes to the problems in the area of climate change. So agriculture is both an end in itself, as well as an instrument to ensure that the situation improves. And there, together with our government organizations, but also our business community and our academia, we work together in making sure that we develop a long-term strategy.
So, Mr. Thiet, what is so special about this ATP Agricultural Transformation Program?
As I mentioned before, the complex web of issues of the Delta centers around the intensive agriculture. So agriculture transformation is the very good entry point. And if we can address transform the agriculture of the Delta, we will almost solve everything, every issues of the Delta. For example, if we transform agriculture from the current model of high inputs, high outputs, production target, then we reduce the load of chemicals that end up in our rivers and canals, and we will restore rivers and canals, and once again the fish will come back. We can use the surface water once again, just like not too far ago, like 30 years ago. So we can stop using groundwater, and we can reduce the rate of sinking because of land subsidence.
You two both mentioned about Decree 120 by the government. So talking from the expert point of view, Mr. Thiet, how has the government implemented it so far, in your opinion?
The Resolution 120 is very well received. And I personally think it sets very wise strategic direction. Number one, principle is respect the rules of nature and avoid aggressive intervention into nature. Number two, consider not only fresh water, but also brackish water and saline water as resources. Number three, to transform agriculture from the production target to quantity focused to quality and value building. Number four is planning from now on will be integrated, no longer sectoral and localism in planning. Number five is we need to include the coastal water, not only the continental part.
Although facing many difficulties and challenges, especially climate change, the Mekong Delta still has a lot of favorable conditions to develop into an agricultural hub over the next 10 years. According to experts, localities in the region must adapt, respect nature, and find suitable transformation models for long-term development. After 17 conferences and 12 meetings with ministries, industries and localities, the Ministry of Planning and Investment held a conference to report on and seek advice for the last time on the Mekong Delta Integrated Master Plan 2021 to 2030 with the vision up to 2050. This is the first regional plan that has been geared towards integrated planning. It was the first plan to be approved by the National Assembly after being established in line with the Planning Law 2017. The plan takes human at the center and water source as the base.
Con người đây là những người nông dân, người sống ở chỗ nào thì họ phải được chú ý để làm sao cho họ giàu lên. Thành ra tôi nghĩ rằng đây là một cái quy hoạch nó tương đối là toàn diện.
The plan is designed to tackle challenges and create value for the region. Agricultural development will be implemented based on three conditions: fresh water, brackish water, and saline water. The plan will promote and support the production of better quality crops, while the industrial and agricultural centers help increase the value of goods. For example, for Bến, the focus is on fruits and vegetables. For An Giang, it's rice and aquatic products, and for Đồng Tháp, it's flowers and ornamental plants.
Phát triển theo từng cái khu nông thôn, đô thị, du lịch và công nghiệp chế biến có phân định và tạo được cái môi trường đáng sống của vùng đồng bằng sông Mekong Long thì quan điểm này tôi nghĩ rằng vấn đề rất cực kỳ tốt.
Cái bản quy hoạch này nó sẽ là cơ hội để nó phát triển một cái mô hình mới, tức là mỗi địa phương sẽ phát triển theo cái mô hình, cái cách đi của mình, và như vậy người ta gọi đây là một cái chiến lược đại dương xanh, và như vậy nó sẽ phát huy được cái sức mạnh tổng hợp và không có một cái sự cạnh tranh.
However, with the GRDP per capita reaching $4,100 by 2030, the region needs to have appropriate investment institutions and resources for the Mekong Delta to really make a breakthrough.
Đề xuất là nên đưa xây dựng cái kết cấu hạ tầng, mà trong đó đặc biệt là kết cấu hạ tầng giao thông là yếu tố hàng đầu, và như vậy thì nó có cơ may sản xuất cho đồng bằng sông Cửu Long có thể phát triển trong tương lai.
Chúng ta đã có khoảng hơn 40.000 tỷ để chúng ta thực hiện những cái dự án của đường ven biển, rồi là những cái dự án mà các cái con đường mà kết nối vùng, cái liên tỉnh rất quan trọng của các địa phương.
Although there are many different opinions, most of the localities have agreed with this regional development plan. The Ministry of Planning and Investment submitted the plan to the Prime Minister in December 2020. This will be an opportunity for the Mekong Delta to truly transform in the near future.
Ambassador, can you help us understand more about this Mekong Delta Integrated Master Plan with a vision up to 2050?
So it's a framework actually for future economic activities in the Delta on the one hand side, for future livelihood in the Delta, and how water management and agriculture, two very important drivers, should be geared towards the support of that economical and societal objective.
So with that, how will it open up new opportunities for the Mekong Delta to move forward to better future?
Well, as a framework as plan or framework strategy, it touches upon, amongst others, agriculture. And then I'm getting back to the agricultural transformation program that Vietnam is currently undertaking, amongst others, in partnership with the Netherlands. What we aim for is, under this umbrella, have a look at how we can further sustain agriculture in such a way that it can continue to contribute to the economic growth of the region and the livelihood of the farmers. So that means that instead of rice, farmers can focus on aquaculture, or on a combination between rice and aquaculture, or that farmers, instead of fruits, grow vegetables, or a combination of different crops. Doing that, you unlock the potential of the Mekong Delta, and at the same time unlocking the world for the Mekong Delta, make sure that produce and also services from the Mekong Delta can be distributed to the rest of Vietnam more easily, to the ASEAN region, but I think most prominent also to Europe. Currently there's a very interesting window for Vietnam and the European Union after we signed the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement.
Yeah.
And that agreement is actually offering a lot of potential for farmers and for the agricultural sector in Vietnam.
Right. Mr. Thiện, can you comment more on this?
The integrated planning takes people at the center, and it sees the Delta not merely as a production area, not only as a great farm producing food, but also a living space,
right,
with the characteristic culture, water-based culture. So it's in line with the Resolution 120. The Resolution 120 itself takes people at the center.
Ambassador, looking back at these milestones recorded during the strategic partnership between Vietnam and the Netherlands in terms of climate change adaptation and water management, what will come to your mind first?
We have 46 years of diplomatic relations, and what comes to my mind first is that we were able really to focus our relationships strategically to climate change, water and agriculture. We were able to develop 2 strategic partnerships under that header that are led by political leaders in both the Netherlands and Vietnam. And I think that is that's quite an achievement.
The water square consists of 3 different basins. In the 2 shallower basins, rainwater and runoff from the surrounding surface and rooftops is collected. Water from the wider area flows into the central sports square. In dry conditions, you can skate, dance, play sports. As soon as it rains, water will flow through the wide open gullies into the 2 shallow basins. If the rain comes pouring down hard, the water flows through a water wall directly into the deeper basin. The Bethlehem Square has a storage capacity of up to 8,500 bathtubs. That's at least 1.7 million litres. As soon as it stops raining, the water will slowly drain into the ground or flow to the nearby Nord-Singel Canal, and the square is ready for use once more.
As part of the bilateral cooperation between Netherlands and Vietnam in climate change adaptation, Rotterdam, you mentioned it, has helped Ho Chi Minh City with the climate adaptation strategy. So how has this project worked so far?
Between Rotterdam and Ho Chi Minh City, we built a very interesting dialogue about urban planning and climate change and climate adaptation in particular. So both are big cities, both are highly industrialized cities, both are cities with a port function. So both cities are also unlocking our countries to not only our own countries, but also to our hinterlands. I think a very important notion that was made was that actually in its growth ambitions, Ho Chi Minh City should not grow towards the sea, but better to move towards the inland of Vietnam, so towards the Mekong Delta. We have established a good relationship, and I really hope that in 2021 we can give it another incentive.
One very big issue that Ho Chi Minh City is facing is flood.
Yeah.
We call it chiều cường, right? So how is that issue addressed in the cooperation and sharing experience between Rotterdam and Ho Chi Minh City?
As regards flood control, it's a complex issue. It has to do with infrastructure, it has to do with planning, it has to do with making sure that what you eventually decide to do in terms of infrastructural works is not hampering too much the environment. Making sure that you also take care of the interest of the people. And a very important issue is financing. And there, the Netherlands and Vietnam also closely work together. In the Netherlands, we very often work with so-called public-private financing structures in a joint venture between the government and companies, and then in such a way that the companies can eventually use the structure to get back their investment.
Our climate is changing. Droughts, floods, heat waves, wildfires, and sea level rise mean we need to change with it. We need to learn to work together to become more resilient. We must adapt. That is why the Netherlands is hosting the world's first Climate Adaptation Summit on January 25th, 2021. Heads of state, the scientific community, the private sector, international organizations and youth groups will meet online to help the world prepare better for the effects of climate change. We will launch an agenda for the coming decade to accelerate adaptation action.
So the Netherlands will host the Climate Adaptation Summit 2021 in January 2021. So how does Vietnam's participation in this event reflect the shared vision between the Netherlands and Vietnam in this field?
Of course, the Netherlands is very proud that we can host the Climate Adaptation Summit. It underlines also the political commitment the Netherlands has towards this topic, not only for our own country, but on a global level. And we are really happy, and I as an ambassador a bit proud that Vietnam decided to take a prominent role also in that summit, because Vietnam, and in particular the Mekong Delta, is, I think, a very good example of how a region that is severely affected by climate change can tackle the challenges by smart, long-term integrated planning and ensuring that not only the lives and the livelihoods of its people are drivers, but also a solid business case.
What do you think about the prospects of the Mekong Delta, as well as those for bilateral cooperation in climate change between the two countries?
The Mekong Delta is a very rich region of Vietnam in terms of biodiversity, in terms of culture, but also in terms of economic potential. And it is a strong region now, but it is challenged in many ways by climate change. If we are able to adapt, I think there's a sound business case for unlocking the potential of the Mekong Delta, not only for the people living and working there and for the rest of Vietnam, but also unlocking the Mekong Delta to the rest of the world. And I have experienced its gastronomy not only during the 3 days that I was able and invited to travel around with Mr. Chen and his fellow Mekong Delta boys. But I was also able to engage with farmers, proud farmers of fantastic products, fruits and vegetables. And I really, really hope that we can do those farmers justice by making sure that the quality and the quantity of their products will rise to such an extent that they are able to export those products to the Netherlands and Europe.
So now, talking from the perspective as a son of the Delta, what can you say about the future of the Mekong Delta?
I do see a bright future of the Mekong Delta ahead. It's important that we don't just trying to spend investment on just maintaining the status quo, but we need to spend investment on paving the new way, new path for the development. Now that there is I call it golden trio of policy, the planning law 2017, the resolution 120, and the decision 953 on regional coordination. So I believe that now is the time for the Mekong Delta, and in 10 years' time, I invite you to come to the Mekong Delta to see the thriving Mekong Delta once again.
Yeah, well, I'd love to. And maybe I would invite Ambassador.
I'll come back for that.
Well, once again, thank you so much to both of you for joining Talk Vietnam today. And thanks to your very informative sharing, we've learned a lot about the issues that the Mekong Delta is now facing. And we believe that with the change in the mindset and the approach, the future will hold bright for the Mekong Delta. And that is the end of Talk Vietnam today. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.